Alright, welcome back to the channel. My name is Siim Lund, and in this video we're going to talk about what are the best carbs for weight loss.
Time to carbo load.
If you're new here, then make sure you click like and subscribe as well for future videos about health and biohacking.
Do it!
Alright, so here are the foods that I'm going to be ranking, and the criteria that I'll, judge these foods on is based on mostly like satiety, the calorie content, how they affect your hunger signaling, and maybe like a little bit of the carbohydrate content as well, and how does it spike your insulin levels. But that's not like necessarily the most important thing. The most important thing in my opinion is still the calorie deficit and the kind of satiety that you experience from that. So let's begin. On here we have first carbohydrates from these buckwheat, quinoa, and these kind of grain foods. So these are slightly higher on the carbohydrate content. They tend to have more fiber, and they're, let's say, they're not hyper palatable. They're not donuts, they're not cookies. They're quite satiating, and I don't know a lot of people who overeat on buckwheat or quinoa because they're like boring foods. So that's why I'll put them into the category of easy diet. That it's very easy to kind of undereat buckwheat in a sense. It's a satiating food, and it kind of fills you up, and it doesn't cause these massive cravings, and you can go on autopilot almost, so to say, that you don't really have to count how much buckwheat or grains you eat. It's somewhat of a easy mode in a sense that it doesn't require a lot of willpower. Next up is gonna be oranges, or this orange juice, these kinds of things. Generally, like, I'm not a fan of drinking juices because they tend to give you more calories and less satiety compared to actually eating fruit. So yeah, if I were to consume oranges, then I would actually eat the fruit itself. And oranges themselves are pretty low in calories. They're a lot of water, a lot of not a lot of fiber, but some vitamins, vitamin C, antioxidants, and stuff like that. And yeah, it's like really difficult to overeat on oranges if you were to be actually eating oranges. Like you would have to eat, I don't know, 10 oranges or something like that to start gaining weight from oranges. But the opposite is true for the orange juice. Like if you drink orange juice with every meal, you can add up the calories quite a lot, and it doesn't really register in your brain that you actually consumed it. So I'm not a really fan of drinking juices. I much rather eat the fruit in its whole food form. So that's why I'll be putting it into moderation, so to say, that you can definitely overdo it, but it's still not necessarily like the best fat loss carb. It doesn't really help you to lose weight. Next up is gonna be bananas. So bananas are one of the higher carb fruits, so a lot of glucose. But if you're taking like green bananas, then they also have this resistant starch that is more fiber and lower in carbs. Actually helps with blood sugar regulation and also the microbiome. So the microbiome can have like some effects on your digestion for sure, but also like the metabolism and weight loss. So yeah, I'll be putting them into also moderation, so to say. Like bananas, if you eat like a ton of bananas all the time, then the calories can add up. So generally I wouldn't recommend eating any more than 1 to 2 fruits per day, or like 3 at maximum. They're not like high calories, but again, like you can still subconsciously, and because there's the misconception that you can eat as much fruit as you want all the time, and it's healthy for you, therefore you can eat all the time, but it still has calories, and whether or not it comes from fruit or some other carbs, it doesn't really matter. Like calories at the end of the day are gonna be the determining factor whether or not you lose weight. And the same applies to these apples and pears as well. I'll be putting them into moderation, so to say. Next up is gonna be actually the junk food, cakes, pastries, processed carbs that are really high in calories, high in carbs, as well as high in fats. And they're not definitely like a diet food for sure. They're gonna make your diet probably harder because they hijack your brain reward mechanism to a certain extent and make you want to overeat more, so to say. Like if you avoid all cakes, then it's actually quite easy to diet if you get used to it. But kind of you break the cycle by having some junk food, donuts, and especially if you're calorie restricting, then you're gonna feel it much more, so to say. You get the more cravings. So I'll be putting them into the last category, which is like if it fits your macros, so to say. Like of course if you fit it into your calorie maintenance, you can get away with basically anything, but it does make your diet, let's say, you have less room for the other satiating foods, so to say. And yeah, like it can work for some people, but generally, it's not like a weight loss tool for sure. And the same applies to, of course, like pizza, high calories, high fats, high carbs, and not really something to be considered as a diet food. Next up is white bread, or any kind of bread. Like I don't really eat bread. Some people like it. It can help to maybe satiate them much more if they have some bread with their meals. But from a carbohydrate perspective, it doesn't really have like a lot of weight loss benefits. It can maybe satiate you a little bit, but that's also very subjective. But from a carbohydrate perspective, it's not inherently good. So by putting it into like the be careful category, that you can have it every once in a while, but if you eat like a ton of bread, then chances are you're gonna be consuming too many calories eventually. Next up are legumes and beans, lentils. So these carbs, they're almost equally as much protein as they are like fiber. So they tend to have like a really satiating effect from that angle. And they also have protein, which is good for satiety as well as weight loss. And generally beans are very satiating. You can't really, or it's hard to overeat beans. So I'll be putting in the easy diet category because like if you eat some beans, you'll probably, if you add even like a little bit of beans to your meal, then that meal has more satiety effects, and you will probably stop eating much faster. So you don't have to necessarily start quantifying your old calories. Next food is beetroot, beets. So beets are actually quite higher in sugar compared to some other tubers, but it's not actual sugar. It's not fruit sugar. It's slightly higher in carbs, and it has like some other beneficial compounds like nitrates that help with the blood flow and maybe increase exercise performance, increase endothelial function, improve endothelial function. So it's a healthy carb for sure, like cardiovascular health. But the problem is also that it also has maybe some of these oxalates if you eat too many of these beets. And if you have like oxalate issues, then you may be sensitive to it. So we're putting it into moderation. Like I don't know any diet, or I don't know like a lot of people who eat beets like with every meal all the time. And it's definitely something that you can add maybe every other day or so. But I wouldn't be eating them all the time with every meal or something. The carrots, turnips, these tubers, they're even okay for a low carb diet because they're not super high in carbs, they're not high in calories, they're pretty satiating, high in fiber. So I'll be putting them in easy diet category because I don't know, it's hard to, let's say, gain weight from eating too many carrots. If you eat, you get full and your stomach will explode first for that to happen. Cereal, breakfast cereal, Frosted Flakes, Cocoa Puffs, those stuff. Definitely high in carbs, high in sugar, very hyper palatable for sure if you combine it with milk, and it's not inherently good for weight loss in my opinion. I'll be putting them into be careful. I think it's definitely healthier than these if it fits your macros type of thing, and you can definitely have like some granola or something. It can definitely fit into your calorie maintenance much more easily than like a pizza, because it's still, although it's high in carbs and high in sugar, it's not high in fats, so the calorie content is still moderate compared to these junk food. Dried fruit, raisins, dried apricots, dried plums, dates, those things, because they're dried, they're also higher in calories compared to regular fruit, and they also have more sugar because of they're dried. There's not a lot of water in it, so you're basically, it's easier to overeat these dried fruits than it is to overeat actual fruit, because you're not getting the water, you're only getting this dried up plum, and it's much easier. It's like as a snack, the dried fruit is definitely more damaging or more calorie containing. So I'll be putting be careful. Like I wouldn't, it's too easy to overeat those kinds of foods. Pineapple. So pineapple is an interesting thing because it is okay in the carbohydrate content. It's not super high in carbs, although it's maybe similar to bananas or oranges. But it also has like these digestive enzymes, mostly bromelain for the digestion of protein, so it can help with breaking down foods and just improve maybe digestion and gut health. So I'll be putting it into, you know, moderation, or actually I'll be putting it to easy diet, because, you know, your it's going to help you to digest the food better, so to say. So you're going to be feeling also maybe slightly better, especially if you're eating like a larger volume of foods when you're dieting, and that's why I'll be putting it into this. So it just makes your life a bit easier. Oatmeal. Oatmeal is also you know, not super high in calories. It's similar to, you know, cereal and bread, and it has a little bit more fiber than those foods. But I'll be putting into moderation, so to say, that you don't necessarily have to worry about oatmeal. It's not hard, or it's not easy to overeat on oatmeal, and it does have like a satiety effect because of the higher fiber. But it's not like as dangerous or as harmful as these cereals or bread, in my opinion. Cream of rice, cream of wheat. So basically, the non-fiber version of these oats and stuff. It has similar calories, but it has much less fiber, and it does have a much higher glycemic index. So you will experience more of these blood sugar spikes and ups and downs from eating this cream of rice or cream of wheat. So your satiety signals are going to be more messed up, and maybe you'll be more dependent of basically eating carbs all the time. So I'll be putting it to be careful just because of that. And it's like, you know, just pudding, in a sense. There's no real satiety signal that you get from it, because, you know, you don't have to chew it a lot. You can swallow it almost without chewing at all. And the chewing part itself, chewing the food, some food, you know, because of the high fiber and high water content, you're kind of receiving the satiety signal from just the chewing process itself, which is actually quite impactful. So if you're like drinking your calories, you don't really recognize that you consume the calories as much as you do from actually chewing food. So that's why the juices tend to be, you know, not really optimal for getting the satiety signal, at least. Spinach or these greens, I will also be putting them into moderation. Although like spinach is one of the lowest calorie vegetables out there, it's also quite, you know, a bit more protein and has like iron and stuff. I will still putting it into moderation because of the same the oxalate properties. So if you eat too much spinach, then you may get like some digestive issues for sure, and maybe if you have kidney issues, then that can also like flare up. So I wouldn't be putting it into this ad libitum category because of that. Like if you were to eat spinach, like, I don't know, 1 kilo of spinach a day or 500 grams of spinach a day, then you're gonna probably have like some digestive issues. So I'm putting it into moderation because of that. Although spinach and every other salads are a great addition to a diet because of the volume of food that you get compared to the small amount of calories and the satiety effect. Cruciferous vegetables or this cabbage and stuff, I'll be putting them into ad libitum because yeah, they're also basically same as spinach. Or actually, you can put like spinach next to that. It doesn't really matter. You just have to kind of know. Some people don't get any oxalate issues at all, and the same applies to these vegetables, that they're very low in calories, they're relatively high in fiber, has a little bit of protein actually compared to some other carbs, and yeah, just makes the diet very easy. Like you would before you can gain weight from eating broccoli or cabbage, you would have to eat like several kilograms. But the thing with these vegetables is that you have to kind of cook them before you eat them. So eating raw cabbage and raw broccoli and raw cauliflower is not the best idea because of they will inhibit the absorption of iodine, and that can cause like some thyroid dysfunction or some symptoms of low thyroidism, hypothyroidism. So yeah, whenever you do cook a lot of vegetable, or when you eat vegetables, you have to cook them and not have them raw. And yeah, I'll be putting the other vegetables here as well, you know, these tomatoes, bell peppers, radishes, and stuff like that. Because yeah, like, they're basically very low in calories, high in fiber, high in water, and you just stop eating before you gain weight on that. Sweet potatoes. So sweet potatoes are slightly lower in calories and lower in carbs than regular white potatoes, and they don't have like a huge, you know, nutritional difference. I'll be putting them into easy diet. So because potatoes are quite satiating, as was shown, as is seen in research, that one of the highest satiating foods is actually potatoes next to like protein sources. So that's why we're putting it in the easy diet. Like there are some diets, some people who have lost a lot of weight by eating only potatoes. So I wouldn't like recommend it, but it is possible, and it kind of goes to show how satiating these tubers and potatoes tend to be. And yeah, I do whenever I do eat carbs, then they tend to be potatoes, and they are, I think, quite satiating. Corn, I don't eat corn at all, and I think that it's also hard to overeat corn if you're basically eating the corn on the stick, so to say, because it's like a strenuous process actually having to chew and stuff like that. But if you take corn and turn it into popcorn or turn it into corn tortillas, then that kind of changes the situation completely, because you're changing the food composition of that, and you're making the food that much easier to eat, and more hyperpalatable, more enjoyable, so you want to eat it more. So I'll be putting it into moderation because of that. The corn itself on the stick, the corn in its aboriginal form is definitely like maybe like easy diet, because yeah, I don't know how you can overeat the corn, like it's not a super tasty food, but yeah, if you're eating corn, let's say in the tortillas or in popcorn, then it can definitely make you overeat. So I'll be putting it in moderation. Chips, potato chips, that is, I'll for sure be putting them into, if it fits your macros. So if it is made of if it's store-bought chips, then it's also high in fats in addition to the carbs. So they're much higher in calories than regular potatoes. So yeah, you can definitely have them if you will like I wouldn't do it. Like if I were to have like some chips, like if I wanted to have it, then I would make my own like sweet potato chips at home that have less fat and less calories, and you'd be better off as a result of that. Cookies as well, if it fits your macros. Not a weight loss food for sure, and too much calories. Not worth it in a sense. Pumpkin or squash is also, I think, easy diet, because yeah, like very hard to overeat pumpkin. You can use it even as an alternative to you can use the pumpkin to make puree, and the same applies to these cruciferous vegetables. You can use these cruciferous vegetables to or like cauliflower specifically, to make like cauliflower pizza crusts, cauliflower rice, cauliflower mashed potatoes, whatever it is, cauliflower bread, or you can be very creative with it and you can swap it out. So that's why cauliflower is pretty versatile food, and the same applies to these pumpkin. You can make pumpkin puree, and even like a zucchini pizza or something. Pasta or spaghetti. For that, I think it's gonna be careful, because it's a more hyperpalatable food than other the previous ones, because spaghetti usually is quite enjoyable if you have like bolognese sauce or something, meatballs with the spaghetti. People tend to overeat on pasta all the time, and it's one of the biggest like weaknesses for a lot of people. So but it's not like as high in calories as these these processed foods. But I'll be putting in be careful. French fries depends on where it is. If it's homemade French fries, then it's just like be careful. It's very hyper palatable and makes you want to eat it, but it's not super high in fats if it's homemade from regular sweet potatoes or stuff. If the fries are from McDonald's, then it's much higher in fats, dense in calories, so it will be if you fit your macros. But I'll be putting that into be careful. Beans, green beans, or asparagus or something like that, artichoke, these kinds of things. I'll be putting that into ad libitum, because again, like one of the lowest calorie foods out there, very low in carbs, and they also have like these more resistant starch that improves the microbiome, and yeah, hard to overeat. Let's say it's hard to overeat on beans, because it's a very boring food, not really super tasty, but it does fill you up quite nicely. And the same applies to these celery, cucumber, and all the other greens. Very hard to overeat and gain calories, gain weight from that. Very like they do have calories, but very close to zero almost. Jelly beans, gummy bears or candies, whatever's. yeah, I'll be putting that into if it fits your macros as well. So, you know, does give you energy maybe for a workout or satiate your sugar cravings, but again, it's very hyper palatable and you can start to overeat. Same applies to chocolate, very high in calories. I'm not against eating chocolate if it's like, you know, good, healthy, maybe dark chocolate. That will be a better alternative than regular milk chocolate, but again, it's quite high in calories and may make you may ignite you the desire to start eating more. Rice. Rice is interesting. I'll be putting that into moderation because it's quite high in high in carbs, but it's not that high in fiber. So and it does maybe fill you up. Like it's not a super satiating, not a super palatable food. It's satiating and does fill you up, but it's you know, something to be kind of a moderate, in my opinion. Grapefruit is also interesting, similar to pineapple, because it has, you know, fructose, but it's not high in calories, and the enzymes in the grapefruit help with like insulin production and helps to improve insulin resistance, so to regulate your blood sugar better. So maybe it can be useful for preventing like this massive rebounds in the blood sugar, and keeps you satiated as a result of that as well. And lastly, we have regular white potatoes, which I mentioned are one of the more satiating foods in the world. So I think having some potatoes in the diet may make it more satiating, and definitely also improves like some of the nutritional profile. Like there's a lot of potassium in potatoes, and you can cover a lot of your daily potassium needs with just potatoes. So yeah, I do personally, whenever I do eat carbs, then I'll have like regular white potatoes. Because of the satiety effect, and I do kind of taste good without making you like overeat, unless you make fries out of them. So there you have it. This is the list of the best carbs for weight loss, in my opinion. If you want to know how to improve your body composition and health with strategic carb cycling and intermittent fasting, then check out my metabolic autophagy masterclass. But that's it for this video. Make sure you click the like and subscribe, notification bell as well. My name is Siim. Stay optimized, stay empowered.